Good morning everybody. My name is Ivor Clark and I welcome you to this virtual seminar on cetacean monitoring here at Newbiggin by the sea. As you will all appreciate, the plan that we had for today, which is the 26th of March, was as part of your field trip that you come to visit Newbiggin by the sea and to our maritime centre, where I would host a seminar on the topic of cetacean monitoring. I was invited to do this last year by Dr. Sugden, and it was well received by the first year students then. Obviously can't do quite the same in terms of the presentation today, but having already started preparation before we actually ran into the issue with the virus crisis, I thought I would complete an abbreviated version, and then I'll pass this on as a video to Dr. Sugden, and she in turn can review it and pass it on within the university communications setup, which I understand is something called Blackboard. So first of all, please forgive me if I do make references within the slides which are perhaps not relevant to a virtual seminar, but I'm sure at least some of the information you will find helpful as part of your studies. This is me. Just to give you a quick background, I am a former clinical perfusionist, and for those of you not familiar with that term, it describes a clinician who specialises in life support technology, particularly relevant at the moment, I suppose. I've also been a researcher in different subjects, and more recently a lecturer in applied sciences. My current research interest is marine exobiology, which is combining astrobiology with investigations into things like, or topics like origins of life. I currently lead a project to study wild dolphins, bottlenose dolphins in particular, off the Northumberland coastline. This is something I started about 13 years ago. I've been very fortunate, I have to say, that it's become a major investigation for a number of institutions now, when 13 years ago it was pretty much a hobby, I have to say. In the course of that work, I've become a local coordinator for a charity called Sea-Watch Foundation. They coordinate survey data from all around the UK. I'll talk a little bit about them later. But particularly relevant to research and to monitoring cetaceans generally around our coastline. Most recently, I became chairperson of the Newbiggin Dolphin Watch Association. This is an organisation that was set up about 18 months ago now. It's community led. It's all about introducing people to the topic and encouraging them to participate in surveys and watches, which we organise here at a place called Church Point. I'll explain a little bit of our local geography in a few moments. And the association has a number of objectives, but one of which is to focus on how we monitor cetaceans and generally, and our dolphin population specifically. So that's a little bit about me. And before we get into the presentation proper, you'll have noted from the programme that Dr. Sugden will have shared with you that there was going to be a session on animal rescue. I'm actually going to keep that for another time and just focus on the cetacean monitoring this morning. But what I would like you to do, and I do this with all of our meetings, all of our roadshows, all of our seminars, all of our public meetings, if you can take your phone now, if you have it with you, and go into the contacts list and add these two phone numbers. It's for the British Divers Marine Life Rescue. They are the premier organisation, together with the Coast Guard, that would be involved in marine mammal rescue. So if you can pop those numbers into your contacts list on your phone, and if nothing else, after today, hopefully you go away with the potential to be a lifesaver as far as marine mammals are concerned. And please visit the BDMLR website if you want more information. The second thing I would have requested today was for you now to put your phone in airplane mode or vibrate mode or silent mode. Of course, that's not necessary. And just to help get you orientated, particularly for those of you who are from other parts of the country, we are in Newbiggin by the Sea, which is a small coastal town on the northeast coastline, about 14 miles to the northeast of Newcastle, where the closest town is Ashington, and we have a small population, around about 6,000, varies a little bit because we have holiday caravan parks here. But the town itself is steeped in history, both ancient and modern, so I'll give you a little flavour of that as well, and talk a bit about the local topology and geography, which is particularly relevant to the topic of cetacean monitoring that we carry out here. So Newbiggin by the Sea, as I say, it's a small coastal town, has a rich heritage. Its ancient history can be traced back at least to the last ice age, and an example of that on the beach is a rock. It's a cuboid shaped rock called the Hunkleston Stone, and this has been dated back about 9,500 years, and is thought to be a remnant of when the glacier or the glaciers retreated at the end of the last ice age. We also have evidence of ancient forests undersea, offshore, and occasionally we get petrified wood remains washed ashore. It's very much the coastal plain is a rich, fertile land. It's been a source of coals and the coal mining industry for best part of 70 years, I think. And in terms of the ancient history, there is evidence of early agriculture. It was a Viking settlement in the late 900s and also has links to Holy Island and Lindisfarne as part of the Northumbrian culture. The Maritime Centre itself is next door to St Bartholomew's Church, which dominates the skyline of Newbiggin. It's originally a 13th century chapel that was built at that site, and people often ask me, well, why did they build a church so close to the water? Well, of course, in the 13th century the chapel was much further inland, and what you're actually seeing today is the effects of coastal erosion. Anecdotally, stories of cetaceans from the past. One example, in the early 1800s, a large whale, I don't know what species it was, but it was washed ashore, and it was harvested for 180 gallons of oil, which of course at that time was a precious commodity, and enough whale steak to feed the town for 3 weeks. I don't actually know whether they did eat just whale steak for 3 weeks, but that was the story. And it was also a very popular Victorian seaside resort. Other aspects to its history include being a port for the import of grain, its telegraphy. It still has the oldest working RNLI station, over 160 years, and there's a number of World War I and World War II relics in the area. Steeped in history as far as coal mining and fishing industries, and there is also a dolphin folklore, which I'll go into a little bit later. So just a couple of aerial shots from Google Maps. We are at Church Point. I'll make reference to Newbiggin Point and to Beacon Point to the north, and to the south of the bay, Spitter Point. And Newbiggin Bay itself has the largest promenade on the Northumberland coastline, some 1200 metres. It's horseshoe shaped and faces predominantly southeast. So just another aerial shot giving an indication of the bay area. And the sea defences that have been installed in the last few years to help protect the bay and the town, which is essentially at or slightly below sea level. And just a view to the south, we have, looking down the coastline, Blythe, Inland, Ashington, Guidepost, Bedlington and Cramlington. Some of these towns will be familiar to some of you, for others it's just to give you some reference as far as our location is concerned. So let's talk about cetacean monitoring, and I'll just take you through some basic principles and practice. First of all, a reminder, cetaceans we classify a group of animals, whales, which we describe either as baleen or non-baleen, toothed or filter feeders with either a single or double blowhole, and this includes dolphins and porpoises. And at this stage I would normally ask you, or ask the group, how many have actually seen a cetacean, a dolphin or a larger whale or a porpoise for real. It could have been on holiday, it may have been elsewhere around the UK. Ask yourselves how many of you have actually seen a cetacean off the Northumberland coastline. You may be surprised to learn that in 2018 we had 11 different species of cetacean positively identified, and that's out of a mix of about 30 that you would see somewhere off the UK coastline. And then how many of you have actually seen our wild dolphins, porpoises or larger whales, specifically minke whales, humpback whales, occasionally pilot whales? How many of you seen them close to shore? So you may have been boat based, but today's presentation will focus on shore based cetacean monitoring. So as I mentioned, Sea-Watch Foundation, they produce annual reports based on data that is submitted both professionally and by amateur observers. Established in 2018, 28 different species of cetacean, including just off our Northumberland coastline, harbour porpoise, common dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, white-beaked dolphins, Riso dolphin, orca, which surprises some people, but yes, we had positive sightings of orca, a beluga, or two beluga whales. I think they were a bit lost at the time, several humpback whales, and indeed in 2019 a lot more sightings of that species. Sperm whales, which as far as today's presentation is concerned, I had originally planned to tell you the story of the sperm whale that was stranded here at Newbiggin last October, but because that involves animal rescue, I'm going to keep that for another presentation. Minke whales are probably the next most observed animal in these waters, alongside the dolphins and porpoises and pilot whales. So why do we monitor cetaceans? Well, I could give you lots of reasons. From an academic point of view, there's good science and the need to understand various aspects of these animals' population dynamics. And we do that by measuring, for example, the size of a population in terms of the numbers, the sex, the type, the species type, how old we estimate that it can age them, where they happen to be observed, the local and national distribution, the various behaviours that they exhibit, and how all this then might relate to their environment and habitat in any given ecosystem. It's quite a mouthful, and I've tried to condense down the reasons to do it. One of the other things I would say, in the course particularly of setting up our dolphin association, is that it's an incredible way of bringing people together. It's actually a lot of fun. We have a great social group now, where the focus, it's still on watching out for dolphins, but in the course of doing that, we can have a good time as well. Getting back to the science, to be able to do this, we need to have an agreed method or methods of how to spot and how to identify them, how to count them,